I don't see how this can end well. I just don't. And it's very concerning, frankly. And I'm a pretty optimistic guy. But check this out. So I'm reading this report from the U.S. World News and World Report from Dateline, October 26, 1956. Everybody rich in the U.S.? In dollars, maybe not, but in goods, yes. In the 15 prosperous years, the nation has advanced far towards the cherished goal of a New Deal abundance, or a New Deal days, abundance for all. Back in the 30s, a $2,500 income was taken as a standard of abundance. Now that average family income gets twice that. Prices and taxes have gone up too, but not like incomes. Living standards are up 1/4 since the relatively good year of 1941. It's an unusual family that does not own a home, a car, TV, and many luxuries. Nothing like it has ever been seen before. 100%. So check this out. In 1941, the average U.S. family income was $2,200. In 1956, it's up to $5,500. But when you factor in inflation, 2210, you can see the cost of inflation, that 2210 should have gone to 4,200. Right? Should have gone to 4,200, but actually the average family went to 5,500. Now, again, I always talk about averages, but that's what we're going to use here. So the average family increased their income well above the rate of inflation. That's where the 25%, what they talk about right here, the average family is up. Living standards are up 1/4, 100%, because what cost $2,500 or $2,200 in 1941 actually cost, according to BLS, $4,200 in 1956. But yet the average income was $5,500. That's a 25% increase in family income for sure. Very interesting though. Homes, 3 of 5 Americans own or are buying the house they live in, 60%. We're even above that right now, by the way. 3 of 4 families have at least one automobile. All right. The old-fashioned well is about gone. 9 of 10 homes now have running water. Nearly 99% of all homes are wired for electricity. Even in rural areas, oil and gas lamps are rare. Pretty good. The dollar has shrunk in value as increased cost 88% in the cost of living increase, but again, the incomes went up significantly more than that. Taxes increase in average family's federal tax up 440%. Whoa. Real income has risen 25% increase in that's just a fact. That's just a fact. Every family has at least one radio. 3 out of 4 American homes have phones. Just about every home has a mechanical icebox of some sort. Among all American households, 80% have washing machines, 61% have vacuum cleaners, 86% have electric irons, 71% have electric toasters. Americans eat and dress better than any other people in the history of the world. The average family earns enough money to feed itself and 4 other families. Interesting. But check this out. What's one of the reasons for this? Incomes are up, but so is debt. You can see people's income in 1941 was $93 billion, whereas in 1956 it was $285 billion. The debts, though, went up from $55 billion to $199. So you can see the American people now owe an amount equal to 70% of a full year's income. 15 years ago, that's 60%. All right, so that's going back to 1956. So I started wondering, what are we looking at now? What are we looking at now? So I did a little chart here. And what I'm going to show you here is if you take my age group, 45 to 54, you're going to see that our income in 1989 was $89,000 and our debt level was $55,000. So we had a 62% debt to income. All right, our debt to income is 62%. Now, debt is just simply how much debt we have, not your payments on that debt, but how much debt we have. Our debt to income is 62% of our income. And remember we talked about, I just showed you, in 1956, it had gone to 70%, which is up from 60% in 1941. But now look, our income has only gone up. Our real income has only gone up by $3,000. This is all in 2022 dollars, by the way. So our income was at $89,000 in 1989. Now it's gone all the way up to $92,000 bucks, a real income. And again, that's net of inflation, but still, it's not a huge increase. Yet our debt has gone from $55,000 to $140,000. So now my cohort's debt to income is 152%. That means it takes a year and a half of one labor income, and this is pre-tax, by the way, pre-tax. A year and a half to pay off all your debt. It's gone up. The debt to income ratio has gone from 62 to 152. Here's the age group 55 to 64. The debt to income in 1989 was only 37%. Now it's 110. Here's the age group, I can't see my handwriting says, 65 to 74. Debt to income has gone from 29% to 75%. People 75 and older, debt to income has gone from 23% to 60%. It's almost a quadrupling, a tripling. Isn't that crazy? Tripling here almost, more than tripling there. And that's not a tripling, but still. Here's the age group 35 to 44. Debt to income from 1989. Look, their income has only gone up by $2,000 real income. That's it. Again, they've kept up with inflation, but they haven't gone above that. And again, if we go back to this right here, this article right there, you can see these guys are up 25% from 1941 to 1956. Real income, that's net of inflation, has risen 25% for the average household back then. That's not what's happening here. Here, real income is going up right there by $2,000 for the 35 to 44-year-old groups, $8,000 for the under 35, 75 plus. The boomers, almost doubling. Real income is doubled for boomers. And then these guys right here has gone up nicely too. But for the people under the age of 35, under the 35 to 44 and 44 to 55, 45 to 54, the real income hasn't hardly gone up at all. And yet debt to income has gone up from 62 to 152, and then down here, 83 to 163. That's crazy. So can that last? I mean, how are you going to make that, especially now with interest rates so high? How can you possibly, I mean, I get it. You can say, well, the reason it's gone up because interest rates are so low, but it can't keep going on. So if it can't, with interest rates high, so if it can't keep going on, then the only other thing it's got to give is that the income's got to go up. Well, this mass outsourcing, mass immigration, the incomes aren't going to go up. I want to share with you something that I thought was kind of interesting. A friend on Facebook who works for United Rentals, and he posted a link about United Rentals job openings. So I just went in there, I typed in diesel. 525 jobs for diesel mechanics out there. 525. Now, you're not going to be a historian, all right? You're not going to have a PhD in psychology. You need to get your hands dirty. If you're trying to say, I can't afford it, you can become a diesel mechanic. But a lot of people, a lot of men don't want to do that, and women certainly don't. So where's the income going to increase? By your history major, by your psychology major, by your communications major, by being a OnlyFans on TikTok, wherever the hell it is. I mean, only so many people can do that, right? I mean, no one's going to pay me to be an OnlyFans. So where does that money come from to increase, given the debt levels that have gone up so high? And if the debt levels can't keep going, they can't keep going up because there's not enough income to pay it. And as any banker will tell you, how do you service your debt? You service your debt with income. At some point, you have to have enough income to pay off your debt, to pay it down, to pay it down, to pay it down, ultimately to pay it off. Who's going to loan you money if your debt to income is already 152% right there? Who's going to loan you money? If they're not going to loan you money, then what does that do? What is that? It's called deflationary, because you're not borrowing money to spend it because your income isn't keeping up with the rising amount of debt you have. At some point, they're going to say your debt to income. Now, governments, I don't worry about because governments can keep printing. So the GDP, the debt to GDP in the United States, that doesn't bother me. The debt to GDP, your personal GDP, your net income does bother me. And this isn't net income, by the way. This is gross income. This is before taxes. So anytime you go to a lender and say, all right, debt to income is 163, you're like, whoa, you got a lot of debt there. They say, well, I can afford it. Yeah, you can afford it, but I'm not going to give you more reason to potentially go bankrupt on me by issuing more debt. So what happens to the economy when that happens? I don't know, man. I don't know. But we've had this trajectory of massive amounts of debt increasing. And with that said, one second. With that said, I mean, look at that debt just shoops by this income. Look at this debt right here. Right here, my age group right there. Look at that massive increase of debt right there. 55, 64. Massive increase in debt. 65, 74. A big increase, not massive. 75 or older. A big increase, not massive. 35 to 44. A big increase, not massive, but huge increases in debt. You can say, well, because the assets are growing. And I get that 100%. I mean, but are the assets growing massively like the level of debt is? Let's look at my age group. And these are assets. Not really. I mean, we went from, what does that say, 324 to 427. It went up by 33%. That's great. But our debt level went up by, our personal debt level went up by freaking from 55 to 140. I mean, this can't keep going on. So I don't know what the end game is, but at some point, there's going to be an awakening where you can't print your own money. You can only borrow on the credit card or against your house for so long before the bank comes crawling, or crawling, come knocking. So again, my advice to you for you individuals, you can either increase your income, and that means get a real job, or it could reduce your debt. While you have a crappier job, just use it to pay off your debt, and then that's the only way you can do it. Increase your income or reduce your expenditures, and the reduce your expenditures is paying off your debt. Don't take on any more. All right, love your thoughts. God bless. We'll see you.